Resuming from our last video, we're going to talk about the infiltration pane first. On the left end, you'll see an icon representing which agent controls the local network. Only that controlling agent may make use of the local assets to take challenges or actions that require them. However, another agent may usurp this network by taking a simple challenge that will take about 3 to 5 turns. On the right end, you're going to see what your reach is. Now, reach is a very important stat. Reach determines what characters you can interact with. To do any challenge or take any action on a character, you need to be able to interact with them. At 7%, we can interact with any character whose influence is 7% or less. And now this is their current, their maximum influence. So you're going to see here a list of characters, starting top to bottom. Notice that the adventurers tend to have very little influence, so you don't need much reach for them, making it easy to play the lore and adventure game without having to worry about politics, unless you want to go into the political game, in which case you will need reach. Moving on to the points of interest. The first thing, anytime you have an administrative center or a large city, you're going to have a court or council or clan hall. Regardless of what it's called, it is the area where new policies are set and proposals and edicts are put into place. Now, the way this works is every culture, based on its stats, expects a certain number of people to be involved in their politics and a certain amount of bureaucracy, which is represented by the maximum influence each character possesses. You add those up, and if the number is above the value, then it's easier for people to remove from that, and it's harder for people for new people to enter with political influence. Same thing with members. If you have less members in the court, you're more likely to see new notables arise and join the court. And when they do so, they'll get a surge to their influence because there are less members currently in the court. If there's too many, you get a large bonus to competitive tasks to undermine someone else's influence and kick them out of the court. So taking a look, you see agenda, proposals, edicts. Agenda is just a list of current proposals that are waiting in the court queue. Proposals are pretty much any action that can be taken in the political realm. Edicts are something that is set nationwide and generally is declarations of war, joining in with another alliance, and that kind of stuff. And if you can set proposals or do national proposals, then those will be highlighted as well. Now, to talk about proposals, look at the agenda, and you'll see there's 6 there, and they're set at an interim of 3 turns. Focus is what determines how often the court will look at the next proposal. So if it's a high value, this court is very distracted and very slow. Even something that's very important, as in a place is descending into madness, won't be responded until that bumps up the queue. Things can be bumped up the queue by people with a lot of influence, although it costs them some. Notice on the right side where it says members that the maximum influence is preceded by another smaller number. That's because whenever they make use of their influence, it goes down a certain amount and regenerates fairly slowly. So you can see it's every agenda is proposed, sponsored, and can have a target. Anyone who's a higher rank than someone who proposed it can become the new sponsor, and then they can change the target of it. So we're looking at these. You can see praise character. It looks like the ruler actually took that proposal away from someone and then targeted that himself. So if he wants, we could jet that up right to the top and have that resolved first, but it would cost him more influence to do so. The only other thing that happens immediately inside this screen is if there is an immediate response required. So if a nation is attacked by another army, immediately the court will convene and say, what's our reaction to this? Are we declaring war? Are we looking for a diplomatic solution? So members over here, the plus icon means that they have an exploitable vice, meaning that they might be greedy, they might be licentious. Either way, if you have the appropriate ability to respond to that, you can click on them and make them vote the way you want. Appointments, there's lots of different advisor slots possible in the game, and it's up to the ruler or for the court to decide to create a new slot. It will increase the bureaucracy as well as increase the max members. And it can also lower the focus if there's too many. However, people of the appropriate position will have a bonus to their current influence for proposals and edicts that are subtypes to that. So in other words, cultural, if they were trying to create festivities, for instance, then the cultural advisor would get bonus influence to decide whether or not they're going to do that. You'll see institutions. If any institutions have any political power here, it will note that and who also gets to use those if they want to. There's also hidden influence that you're not seeing here, so the Underworld can be hidden influence. There can be hidden creatures like vampires that can have influence, and these will be hidden, and you'll only see them tallied up in the final vote. And then also you'll see what traits are possessed by ruler, advisors, and other ranks. So these are not all their traits, these are the traits that can impact current decisions. So the king, or rather the royal protector, is a coward here, which is important. You can see that the advisors have inquisitive, greedy, and agriculture, so that will influence what proposals they can put in place, as well as what their decisions might be based on the proposals. Let's jump down to, this just goes to demographics. The Underworld is only exposed when you have Underworld contacts. Notice most identities here are hidden. You only can reveal them by doing certain Underworld actions. Enterprises work a little bit different than developments. They're much cheaper, and they're paid only by the person who currently controls the Underworld. If there's an unassigned slot, it gives you a massive bonus to control, which can be beneficial. They don't usually offer passive benefits, though some of them do. They usually unlock new challenges that you can do if you're a part of the Underworld. So if the Underworld's highly developed, people who join it can make use of a variety of interesting actions and challenges to either take care of their rivals or to increase their own powers here. It's meant to be sort of another path to control location if you want to avoid the whole politics game. Ruins are usually start off concealed unless you see them on the map, in which case they will be public. You need to either get lay of the land to see them, which is a local asset, or they need to be publicly revealed. This is a publicly revealed ruin. Ruins, they have up to 4 levels, and they generally get larger and more difficult the further down you go. The last level can connect to the Underworld, or to the realms below rather, and the top always connects to the current location that they're located in. There's 2 steps to any level of a ruin, excavation and exploration. The lighter green bar is excavation, which is usually done by armies or using certain rituals, or sometimes by natural disasters, which will excavate large areas. Once it excavates past a certain point, it will reveal new discoveries. Discoveries come in several flavors. Most of them will add new things to the pool of this location that can then be explored. So once they've excavated, for instance, Unnerving Bones, and added 1 unique artifact, it also adds some modifiers to the location. So that artifact is added to the pool of this level. While exploring, characters might find relics here, they might find holy icons, and now a unique artifact was added into the pool that they might find. It does not note whether or not it's already been discovered, so you can't quite tell if this artifact has been removed from the pool unless you cast a certain ritual. So this one just adds gold to the pool, meaning that anyone exploring it might find more money. You'll note that some of these, this is a horror danger. Dangers can be defeated and removed and replaced with a beneficial discovery. Horrors have to be combated with certain rituals. Horrors tend to add terror, danger, things like that to the area. So like caverns here, you're going to see, when we go back, let's jump on over and take a look. So you can see it actually added something to this location. It should be somewhere. Caverns. So it added a unnatural construction to this location, and now unless this gets and the excavation goes down low enough to remove this from the level, it will stay here indefinitely. There's also global works that sometimes can be exposed by this ancient wonders that have to be excavated and then researched to be able to use, and are highly beneficial or highly dangerous. So going back to, so you can see any institution that has a home base here, or a tier 3, will show up down here, so you can take a look at the institution pane. Institutions spread by themselves all over the place. It's very cheap to spread and very easy. Mostly they are only restricted by government policies saying where they can and cannot go. Some institutions will have national focuses, meaning they're trying to defend their homeland. Others will defend cultures. Others will simply care about wealth. Some will just care about holding back the tide of certain eldritch traits. There's guilds, and then there's orders. Guilds are far more common than orders. Orders generally spring up as a part of a special mission by usually an influential or rich member of society. They target more special causes than guilds. Guilds generally revolve around money and production or national interest. Orders tend to be reliant about, let's make sure no one controls a primal node, let's make sure no lizard men are escaping from the swamps, that kind of stuff. And Plane just goes back to traits and resource. Let's go to the right side and take a look. So we've talked about statuses before, so you can see this revolution is coming in 62 turns if this continues based on the math. This will trigger, and it will take any other status that's above 200, which would count in this tier. Now, something might get there before then. No chance. and it would then consume everything above 200, and it would make use of the top 4, so the highest 4 statuses, to make a crisis event. Every status has at least one unique crisis associated with it, and several of them, especially Unrest, have many that could be combined from other things to make more special events, special crisis events. Let's take a look down at the page. So at the top you can see there's a quest. You'll note there's actually the quest markers right here. There are 4 different kinds of quest markers that you can see. This one's an adventure marker, so right now it's heading towards a balanced result. Quests are actually very common quests. There could be anywhere between 7 and 25 in the world at any time. They are very, very common, and they have very powerful possible effects, but they will almost always end up towards the middle, either a slight victory, slight loss, or a balanced result. So you can see victory, heroic victory. Other end you'll see defeat and total defeat. The way it works, though, is that the positive and negative are weighed against one another in the final calculation. So unless one side has vastly gone over the other side, it will tend towards a balanced result. Now, the way in which it's determined progress for the heroes, it's any heroes present can contribute to it, and it also adds in any benefits from the local ruler. And for the other side, it adds up an agent present as well as creatures you might have dropped. You can also assign creatures. So there's 3 slots to actually drop your minions in so that they will passively add their modifier to it as well. However, it's hard to just add tons of the same to it. You need to match the value of the quest, which is shown in the middle, 3220, and for every multiple of that you possess, it's 1 increment of change per turn. So it can be hard to balance out what you add to the quest, but at the same time, your agent passively adds his modifiers to it if he is present inside the location. So you don't need to have him just working on the quest. He can be working on something else and incidentally also affect it. These are just actions, so a character taking an action. They're listed there. They have a priority order in which it's trying to show you which one you might be most interested in. We've seen monsters before. You don't see a lot of creatures inside of cities except for infiltrators, which you need to get a special local asset to find. This is a local asset. Notice that it's typed to townsfolk, and we'll see that when we look at something else like a guard captain. So when it's typed, townsfolk does nothing. It means absolutely nothing happens, but you can change the type. So the snitch starts off just as a regular townsfolk, giving no particular benefit or penalty to any faction, but you can corrupt it by using certain actions and turn it into a cultist, which means it will add to cultist affinity per turn. Or you can it can join the military, it can join a theocracy, depending on what's going on in the city. Now, the way local assets work is interesting. They can get a base threat and profile, but more importantly, they will absorb some of your profile hit when you take actions that use them as a dependency. Meaning, if you take a eyes and ears local asset, an Underworld context action that requires that local asset, they will take half, actually 25% of the profile of that cost, meaning your person will have much less a chance of being discovered, although now your local asset has a much higher chance of being discovered. Guard Captain, so this is an example of a person that's created by the town, so the town has decided it needs to add this. Someone does 10 to 20 turns of work to create one, and they come into play. You'll often see people doing this action even once it's in play, because that's the only way to restore it to total strength. It's at 299 right now, meaning that it's probably been created and then reinforced several times. Guard Captains are a very common addition. They are extremely simple. There's no requirement to create them except for some gold. Festivities. So every city has a base set of actions to respond to threats. Festivities are one of the most simple ones. Essentially, it lowers terror and unrest per turn. One of the downsides to these is that if the event still occurs, generally it now is much worse. So you can see up top, if a festivity exists when a terror crisis occurs, it will instead contribute to the crisis and be destroyed. So the festivities are good unless you can force it to occur, force the terror crisis to occur, in which case the festivities will make the terror crisis that much more punishing. We have an ancient rite here, which I think we looked at before. Ancient rites tend to be caused by either your intervention or the presence of cultists. Ancient rites renew themselves. They try to renew themselves. So they'll trigger an event that looks at cultists, and if there's enough cultists, they will then go back up to full strength. If there's enough cultists and there's enough progress down the ancient path, they will produce the next tier of their own ancient rite and try to progress that all the way to the end. So they are self-propagating, but will generally be defeated once they gain more profile. The lowest ones almost never have any profile or threat. They generally just hang around forever. When they get to the next tier, they'll go up, and in that case, if people become aware that this ancient rite is becoming a threat, they will then have a higher base profile for the lower ancient threat. Alright, so that covers pretty much the basic stuff. Here, before we stop, I do want to look at Belial for a second, as he is your generally starting ancient. So let's take a look first at his basic abilities. Now, he starts with just Eye of the Raven and Swarm of Vermin. These are meant to sort of supplement any mistakes you might have made. So, Eye of the Raven will give you eyes and ears in a location and can later be upgraded to give you even more local assets. And it's instantaneous. All of Belial's abilities are instantaneous and cheap and global. And that's the thing. They're not as powerful or focused as other ancients, but they're very versatile in their usage. Swarm of Vermin will do damage. It'll cause terror in the local area. It can be upgraded to destroy textbooks and things of that like. Heart of Shadow is actually an upgraded ability. You have to purchase that, and it gives your guys plus dominance no matter what they're doing in a location. So again, these are all things just to supplement any mistakes you might have made, to make it easier to play the base elements of the game. Now, his signature ability is up here. So he can twist fate. So what happens is you can modify random events, changing when they occur, the type. There's actually two. So the big type is it a natural event? Is it a fortune event? But you have to upgrade to be able to do that. Inside the events, the event group, you can change to different types. Some of them affect only locations, some of them affect C-zones. You can change the location, and based on your strength, you can do it either very close, or if you upgrade enough, all the way across the world. You can modify the strength, which changes the power, but also there's a positive and a negative for each kind. So negative is usually the bad one, positive is usually the good one. You can also change the turns it will take. So you can do it immediate, or you can do it so it happens much further away. Later on, you can warp something, which creates a unique but very distinct effect in a location. It's very obvious if you use warp that this is an effect of ancient magic. However, if you don't use warp, this is something that's usually very hard for someone to discover, meaning that this is a versatile and powerful ability that is still one that is hard for the AI to detect. It's important for Belial because his other abilities aren't anything that will win you the game. They're things that will help you enact your strategy. But if you do go down the path of Fatebinder, you'll eventually get strong enough to be able to just drop several earthquakes on top of armies. And if they adapt to that particular threat of damage, they can change that. You can change up the random event to be a different type of damage, so it makes it much more versatile in the way in which you're inflicting pain on the world. The last thing to note about Belial also is that his seals are much more versatile than other characters. He actually has a sampling of seals from other ancients. So instead of having just one or two basic themes to the seals that he can upgrade, he is able to sort of focus on what he wants to and gain the benefits of the approach you're trying to take to the world. He also has an ability that lets you change them much faster. Most players can only change them once every 5 turns. Belial can do it so it's once every 2 turns to allow you to really change up based on what's going on in the world at this moment. Alright, so that's the basic stats of the game for locations, and we'll resume again next time.